One of the reasons that 3ds Max has grabbed as much of the 3D animation market as it has, especially in the video game industry, is because of its ability to effectively model at the 3D subobject level. The tools are extensive and definitely go a long ways in making the job of editing an object shape much easier. To demonstrate some of the tools that you'll have to work with, let's create a box cube inside our view. So we can see the additional geometry that we'll be creating, let's also activate edged faces using the F4 keyboard shortcut. Okay, let's now convert our box down to an editable poly, which will give us access to our subobject commands. Now, we certainly could have instead chosen to convert into an editable mesh, but the poly conversion will give us a more comprehensive, up-to-date set of modeling tools to work with. Nothing's certainly wrong with the editable mesh, its toolset just isn't quite as robust. I'll right-click on my object, making that conversion. In the Modify column, I'll open up the Editable Poly entry, getting down to Vertex mode. Let's now select the single vertex that makes the front top of our box. After doing so, we'll orbit around using the Alt middle mouse wheel combo. Okay, let's start with the Extrude. We'll activate that by not clicking on the button, but the option box to the right of the button. Using our caddy, we can now make a few adjustments. We can change the height of the extrusion and also the width from side to side. Let's orbit around to see how that looks. Why don't we go ahead and cancel that out and we'll instead try to use the mouse. This time to activate the extrude command, we'll right-click. We'll then put our mouse directly on top of the vertex and push away. Again, you can see the results. For the remainder of the video, why don't we also hide the selection brackets that you see surrounding the box? We can do that by typing the J key on the keyboard. Let's now hit Ctrl-Z to undo that vertex extrusion. Just below Extrude in the Modify column, you'll find a command named Chamfer. Let's activate the command, then use our mouse to chamfer the vertex. You'll simply hold down on the vertex and push away. Let's right-click to cancel that while still leaving the left mouse down. Why don't we see the options available by instead choosing the chamfer option box? You can click that over in the right-hand column or simply right-click on the screen heading down to the lower left menu. Adjusting the chamfer amount spinner in the caddy, you can see the result. Let's go ahead and accept this by clicking on the green check mark at the bottom of the caddy. If you wanted to take those three vertices back to one, we could weld them together. Again, we could choose the command in the Modify column or simply right-click on our screen. Using the right-click option, I'll now access the Weld option box. In the caddy, down on the second level, I'll then adjust the threshold. Now with these vertices being so far away, we may need to crank that number up quite a ways. You can hold the Control key down while adjusting the spinner to more aggressively move the spinner value. Let's go ahead and cancel that by clicking on the red X, then undo enough times to remove the original chamfer. To return our box to its original orientation within the view, we'll use the View cube in the upper right-hand corner of the window. Now, you also have some handy edge commands. Let's activate Edge mode by simply right-clicking on the screen, then choosing it from the menu. In our viewport, we'll now click Select on the single edge that makes up the top right-hand side of the cube. Back on the right, we'll drop down to the Extrude command. We'll then click on the button, then use our mouse directly in the viewport on the edge. Not wanting to commit to that, we'll hold the left mouse down and right-click. You'll also find some controls in the Extrude in opening up its option box. Let's right-click and do that. Using the spinners, we can control both the height and the width of our extrusion. Now once we've done that, let's go ahead and accept our results, clicking on the green check mark. Edges can also be chamfered, which again can be found under the right-click menu. Once activated, you'll simply put your mouse directly on the selected edge and push away. Chamfering, in essence, divides the edge in two, placing a polygon in between. Let's cancel that and see what options we might have in the control box. We can again control the amount of the chamfer, but on the third level, by adding lines, we can actually round that area off. Let's take the third level of the caddy, connect edge segments, back down to 1. We can then accept our changes. Let's now go into polygon mode real quick. We'll select that newly created polygon, then hit delete. I'd like to show you a couple different ways now that we can fill that hole. One of the ways is to use a command that's available when working with a border selection. Back on the right, let's click on Border. Now, a border is simply a series of connected edges that form a hole. Back in the view, we can now select any edge around that opening. What selects is a border. Now to fill the hole, back on the right, let's find a command called cap. When located, go ahead and click the button. Let's reselect the poly and delete it so I can show you another technique. If working in edge mode, you've got a command called bridge. Let's go back into edge selection and we'll want to select both the top and bottom edges. Now hold the control key down when you make your selection so you're able to grab both of them. With those selected, let's go back on the right-hand side looking for the bridge command. When you find it, go ahead and click. Now let's undo that so I can show you something else. Instead of activating the bridge button, let's instead open up the option box to the right of its name. This gives me the opportunity of not just bridging or adding a polygon in between the two selected edges, but we can also control the number of lines in that new poly. Down on the second row of the caddy, change the number of segments. Let's take that number back to 1 and accept the operation. A technique that you'll be using extensively when modeling at the sub-object level is cutting edges. This allows you to position new geometry only where it's needed, enabling you to strategically add details where necessary, but still keeping the overall weight of your mesh low, something that's especially important when modeling for a video game. Here's how that's done. Remaining in edge mode, let's drop down in our Modify column to find the Cut button. It can also be accessed by simply right-clicking with your mouse. Now, there's several different techniques that you can use when making cuts. You can go vertex to vertex, from an edge to a vertex, or from one edge to another. Max will specifically tell you what it's ready to do by the shape of the cursor. Notice that when placed on a polygon, the cursor looks like a crosshair with a square in the middle. If positioned on a vertex, the cursor turns into a small crosshair. And if laid on top of an edge, the cursor looks like a larger crosshair. Okay, let's see what we can do. First, we'll cut from one vertex to another. When on the vertex, you'll click with your mouse, then pull away. You'll then go to another vertex, watch the cursor change to the appropriate shape, then click again. And once you've done that, you'll right-click to get out of the command. There's your new edge. Let's try instead by going from the middle of the edge we've just created over to another side vertex. Again, watch for the appropriate cursor, then click and pull away. We'll then move our mouse on top of a vertex, then click again. There's an edge to vertex cut. Now, as mentioned, you can also cut from one edge to another. Let's try that. Watch for the appropriate shape on the cursor, click and pull away. When you've got yourself to another neighboring edge, go ahead and click again. So there you go with making cuts in the edge mode. Now, as far as the polygon commands go, we'll cover that next.